Good day, grade 7 students. Welcome back to our online learning class. We are now in week 7. This is our subject, Social Studies, and your teacher here, Miss Michelle Joy. In our social studies this week, we have two topics to discuss. The first one is equilibrium price, and the second one is financial institution. Before we proceed with our online discussion, I would like us to read the words to learn that we will be encountering in our next slides. Please follow after me so you can still practice your reading skills and speaking skills even if you're just at home. Are you ready now? Let's start reading. Letter A, equilibrium price. Letter B, equal. Letter C, sold. Letter D, quantity. Letter E, price. Letter F, financial. Letter G, institution. Letter H, interest. Letter I, bank. Letter J, monitor. So class, I'm just going to give you a brief explanation about these words. So later on, when you hear them in our discussion, you will have an idea what we are talking about. So equilibrium price, class, is when demand and supply meets into a curve. That is called equilibrium price. I will explain to you furthermore later when we are discussing. Equal means the same. Sold means you were able to sell your product. Quantity, number of items. Price, how much you are selling your product. Financial, it has something to do with money. Institution is an organization. Interest is amount of money you have to pay, especially when you borrow. Bank, it is an organization or institution wherein you can borrow money or you can save your money. Monitor means you can check or update something. Equilibrium price. Again and again, we hear that supply and demand define the market. But what does this actually mean? This is Farmer Davis. He sells his apples at the market and wants to sell as many as possible at a good price. One of his customers is John. By contrast, John and the other market goers who love fresh fruit want to spend as little as possible on it. When both of these needs are met, there is a certain point of intersection between supply and demand, which is referred to as the equilibrium price. In practice, it often takes several phases of price adjustment after a product is launched before the equilibrium price comes close to being achieved. Let's start with phase 1. Farmer Davis sells his apples for €5 per kilo, which is higher than the prices being requested by other sellers. As a result, he soon loses customers to his competitors, or the market goers choose to buy cheaper products like pears. Instead, Farmer Davis is therefore unable to sell his apples. The quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded, which creates an oversupply in order. To avoid making a loss, he is now forced to lower his price. The process of price adjustment enters round 2. When Farmer Davis sells his apples for €1 per kilo, instead, it does not cover his costs. All of a sudden, so many customers are interested in his goods that demand quickly exceeds supply and leads to excess demand. The price is now below the equilibrium price. This pushes the apple price up and phase 3 begins. Now the apple costs €3. Supply and demand balance out. Once they match the equilibrium price has been reached. This means that Farmer Davis can earn enough selling his apples without driving away his customers by setting prices that are too high. Farmer Davis sells his entire harvest and John and the other customers are happy. Equilibrium price. By putting the supply and demand curves together, economists can show two things. What are these two things? Letter A, How much of anything may be sold. So you can see here the quantity or the number of products, and letter B, the price to sell it. Okay, so we have supply or the quantity of the products, and we have the price. It depends on the demand or how many people wants to buy. Always remember that when a supply and demand are equal, this is called the equilibrium price. So as you can see here, class, on the left side of the monitor, you can see here the price and you can see here quantity. So when supply here and demand here meets at a certain point, this is what you call equilibrium price. Now, class, let us discuss about financial institution. So when you say institution, means an organization. So financial institutions are organizations working with money because from the word financial, finance means money. Okay. Now, there are two things that financial institutions mostly do. Letter A, lending money. So what is lending money? It occurs when someone allows another person to borrow something. It can be money, property, or another asset is given by the lender to the borrower. But in return, the borrower must pay not only the capital but also the additional money, which we call interest. That is the profit of the person that is lending the money. Now, the second one is raising money. To work to earn money or encourage donations for the benefit of someone, something, or doing something. Now, class, when you say raising money, means you are trying to work, encourage people to give you money for a charitable institution or maybe for a cause. Now, class, an example of financial institution is a bank. Class, in an economic system, production turns resources into products and services. Now, there are four economic systems. They are mixed, traditional, market, and command. And we are going to discuss this one further on in our next lessons. Now, the financial institutions support the production by lending money because when you lend money, class, you get interest, and by getting interest, you gain profit. Now, what is interest? Interest. Companies need to pay when they borrow money from financial institutions like banks. When you say financial institutions, they raise money from people by encouraging them to save at attractive interest rates. For example, I have money and I will go to a certain bank. They will offer me and tell me, when you save your money to us, we will give you 5% interest rate. And I will go to another bank and they will offer me again interest of 6% if I will save my money to them. So I will choose which interest is higher so I can gain more. So this money will then be lent out to people that want to borrow. So they will use my money, class. So it's just right that they will pay me interest. So I can get money from the bank or financial institution. Today, the banking industry is considered as the backbone of the economy and has major contribution to its growth. It's also the main driver for currency and financial stability. But how did the story of banking start? The term Max Bank is derived from the old Italian word banca, meaning a bench. It referred to the public benches where money changers used to sit for exchanging coins or bills in the marketplace. But it's the goldsmiths of 17th century London who developed banking in its modern form. The goldsmith who used to store wealthy clients' gold in their private vaults soon began to lend this field to others in exchange of a promissory note and the payment of an interest charge. That was the big game of banking as we know it. Today, So what is the general role of a bank depositors or people with money? Surplus place their money at the bank in order to earn a return through the credit interest. Borrowers or people with a shortage of money, on the other hand, are willing to pay interest on the money the bank is lending them. In order to accomplish an objective they're seeking. And how do banks make profit? A bank primary source of revenue comes from the difference between the interest it's paying to depositors and the one it's earning from borrowers. A bank also makes profit from charging fees or commissions for services but granted by the bank to its customers, and from investments. So why are banks regulated? Banks collect funds from depositors in the form of small-sized deposits and repackage them into larger-sized loans. Borrowers, on the other hand, might not be able to repay the money they've borrowed from the bank. In addition to that, banks sometimes invest deposits in risky assets if all of these reasons explain. The major role of central banks in protecting depositors' money by monitoring the adequate level of riskiness the bank is taking. What is the role of central banks? Central banks oversee monetary policy to implement specific goals such as currency stability, low inflation, and full employment. They determine the interest rates that influence the bank's pricing schemes and the economy's money supply. They issue currency and grant authorization to establish banks. Central banks also impose a threshold for capital requirements and place reserve requirements to ensure liquidity in crisis. Mode. They shape lending policies through margin requirements and other tools, and they act as a lender of last resort to finance banks that need liquidity today. Several types of bank exist to answer the different needs of consumers and to give them a choice in the way they manage their money. A retail bank, for example, provides services to individuals, commercial, and corporate banks, serve small to mid-sized businesses and large enterprises investment. Banks specialize in large and complex financial transactions. Private banks offer a personalized financial and banking service to high net worth individuals. So, what do we know today about the future of banking? Direct channels such as mobile and the internet are becoming increasingly important in retail banking as they are in our very day's life. Customers today expect financial firms to listen, respond, and offer services through social media. Customers across all segments expect highly personalized, convenient, and reliable service along with 24/7 accessibility. Banking is no longer somewhere you go, but something you do. Now, class, let us discuss the two main financial institutions in Thailand. So the first one is the Bank of Thailand. This bank is the most important financial institution in the country, and it monitors the country's financial system. Only raises or lend money to commercial banks and the government. They also issue banknotes and coins. So an ordinary people like us cannot borrow money from the Bank of Thailand. You can, as an ordinary person, you can borrow money in commercial banks. So what do you mean, class, by commercial banks? Okay, commercial bank issues loan money. They provide services to people like mortgages, car loans, business loans, and even housing loans. Now, class, commercial bank closely work with people. They keep people's savings and pay them interest to gain money, of course. They also lend money for people's investment because you can borrow money from the bank and you can pay it monthly or quarterly. It depends on the condition of the bank. Now, let us discuss the oldest or the first commercial bank in Thailand, which is the Siam Commercial Bank. It started in January 1906 AD in the reign of King Rama V. And do not forget that this is the first commercial bank in Thailand. So class, it's time for me to give you activity, and this is now our activity number 6. Please answer the following questions. Do not type your answers in the comment section because everybody can copy your answer, and we do not like that one, or else you're going to get 0. So the first question, what should be equal to be called equilibrium price? Number 2, what are the two things that an economist can show when supply and demand curves together? Number 3, what do you call an organization that works with money? Number 4, what are the two things that financial institutions mostly do? And the last one, what are the two main financial institutions in Thailand? Please send your answers in our Google Classroom account or in my Line account privately. Good luck, everyone! So class, we now come to the end of our week 7 online discussion, and I hope you understood our topic. If you have any questions or suggestions, or if you are confused with anything about this topic, please feel free to send me a message in our Google Classroom account or in my Line account privately. Thank you very much. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all the soonest. Goodbye!